like to take this time to welcome you to my channel. Today I want to do something different. I want to share with you the story behind the Space Samurai, my very own Space Marine chapter, and talk about how this dream has carried me through some of the hardest and brightest parts of my life. Every model you will see started out as an idea in my head. Making them real has been a journey and trial and error. I would like to give props to Maker's World for helping me bring these designs to life and to Creality Print, the tools I've used to get every detail right in 3D printing. Without them, none of this would be possible. And of course, this wasn't all smooth sailing. There were victories, those moments where a print came out perfect, and when I saw my first samurai-style dreadnought, or armor that looked exactly like I imagined. But of course, there were failures, misprints, broken pieces, things that didn't line up. But every single failure taught me something, and each one brought me closer to making the Space Samurai real. Now, to really explain to you why I've poured so much into this project, I want to take you back to where I came from. I grew up in an abusive home, and by the time I was 12, I left, and I had to survive on my own. Thanks to the kindness of strangers and friends, I got by until I was old enough to work legally. But before that, I did whatever odd jobs I could, washing cars, pulling weeds, anything to let me pay rent and buy food. Because of that, I never finished high school. While most kids my age were stressing about what electives they'd take, I was stressing about whether I could afford rent and even if I'd get to go back to school at all. And at that time, it would have been so easy to fall to crime, drugs, and worst. What saved me, however, was fantasy. I found Dungeons and Dragons. I devoured every fantasy book I could find or read, like Lion Rich and the Wardrobe, and countless others. These worlds gave me an escape. They gave me hope. And even though my home life was both abusive physically and mentally, and also growing up with a stepmother who thought everything bad in the world was the work of the devil, fantasy gave me something to hold on to, something better to believe in. We fast forward to now. I'm a disabled, I have ADHD, I'm dyslexic. Writing books, designing a codex, and building an army, none of this came easy for me. There were days where the words would fight me and where the process would feel impossible. But the dream in my head is too strong to keep locked away. The Space Samurai have to come out. And every time I push through, I prove to myself that disability does not mean inability. And I haven't done this alone. My family and my friends have supported me every step of the way, and I want to especially thank my amazing wife. She's the yin to my yang. On the days I wanted to quit, she was the one who reminded me why I started this in the first place. Without her, none of this would be possible. Now, this will bring me to the heart of this channel. The project is, at its core, a love letter to Warhammer 40k. The Neo Guardians, the Space Samurai, are my visions of what Space Marines could look like through the lens of samurai honor, sacrifice, and duty. I've written novels, I've built a codex, and now I brought these models to life, but I'm unable to move forward with publishing or sharing my novels until I have direct permissions from Games Workshop. That's why I'm here on YouTube, to show the community what I've created and hopefully to get Games Workshop's eyes on this project. My dream is simple: to share the Space Samurai with the Warhammer universe. Now, I know my skills are nothing compared to what Games Workshop's incredible artists, writers, and sculptors could do with this idea. I'm just a guy who fell in love with Kurosawa films, samurai swords, and everything about feudal Japan. For years now, I've seen people asking for Warhammer to dip its toes into these magical waters. The Neo Guardians are my answer to this call, or, to quote a friend of mine, I like money. And I think the Space Samurai could be something that both fans and Games Workshop would love to see become real. I even considered camping out in front of y'all's headquarters like a mad monk just to get somebody's attention. But in hindsight, I figured that would just only end up with me in jail. So instead, I decided to put my heart into this channel, hoping this will be a way to reach y'all. Now, where do we go from here? Well, right now, the models are just 3D printed, bare plastic and resin. The next step will be painting them, and then they'll finally be able to come alive. This, though, however, is going to be its own journey and its own adventure with its own failures and victories. And I'll be taking you along for that journey too. But here's the thing. The only arts I've ever really practiced in my life were martial arts, so painting might prove to be the hardest part of this entire experience. But just like martial arts, every stroke, every lesson is a part of the path, and I'm ready to walk it. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video.